All right, Chair Howerton, we are now live on YouTube. It is 7 p.m. We have, we have Vice Chair Jacobs, Commissioners Burns, as well as Commissioner Carter on the line. I am not showing Commissioner Alam just yet, but we also have our Interim County Manager Hager and our Acting County Attorney Willie Darby on the line.
Well, thank you, Monica. We will go ahead and reconvene. We had a closed session and we read the public charge already, but we will go ahead and say our Pledge of Allegiance, if you will join me. So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Today, as I said earlier, June 28th, our regular session 2021. Are there any agenda adjustments, commissioners? Commissioner Jacobs?
I just wanted to note that Commissioner Alam did message me that she is coming, but running late, but she is on her way.
Okay, thank you. Okay, no other agenda adjustments. We're hearing none. I'll move on to announcements, and we will ask our clerk, Monica, if she will read our announcements.
Good evening, commissioners, staff, and citizens. I will read the announcements for the Monday, June 28th meeting. Public input needed on Region's Triangle Bikeway Study. Participants are asked to share their ideas on where they would prefer to walk along the 17-mile walking path connecting Raleigh, Cary, Morrisville, RTP, Durham, and Chapel Hill. Community members can provide feedback by visiting the study website, www.publicinput.com/Triangle Bikeway Study, and taking an online survey. There will also be 2 virtual public meetings on June 29th from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. via Zoom. Please visit trianglebikeway.com for additional details. Durham Gang Reduction Strategy Steering Committee seeks resident input. The Durham Gang Reduction Strategy Steering Committee is assessing gang-related issues in Durham County. It seeks input from residents via an online survey to provide input on how gangs in Durham are impacting them and ideas to address them. Take the survey on gang-related issues in your community by visiting www.surveymonkey.com/r/Z, C as in cat, 7S, 2K5. Take your shot at DECO Public Health. It's easier than ever to take your shot at the Durham County Public Health Department. Simply call 919-560-HELP, which is 4357, to schedule or visit during walk-in hours. Those hours are Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. and Tuesday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. For more information, please visit www.decopublichealth.org/vaccine appointments. Vets to Vets Clinic, no cost outdoor veterinary clinic for veterans. The Friendly Center Civitan Club, located on 2510 Glendale Avenue, will be hosting a low, no income, and homeless pet owners clinic on Saturday, July 10th from 9 a.m. till 12 p.m. Services will include pet vaccines, deworming, heartworm testing, and flea tick prevention. The first 40 pets will be serviced on a first come, first served basis, and you must show proof of financial hardship or military service. Please contact Mary Seneca at area code 781-363-1162 or by email at email at Mary, the @ symbol, EIRIONTHERA.com. July events at Durham County Stadium. As we continue to dive into the summer months, be sure to check out a brief list of events taking place at the Durham County Memorial Stadium, located at 750 Stadium Drive. Events include Festival at the Eno Parking, July 4th Weekend Laser Light Show, Tobacco Road FC Soccer Team Home Finale, and much more. You can call 919-560-8957 for additional information, or you can visit www.dconc.gov. I would like to state that all of these announcements are available online in our agenda, as well as on our county website. There were a few websites that I did call out, so just to make it easier for the public, they can access it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Monica. Are there any other announcements from the board? Seeing none, before we have before us, board members, our regular session minutes, May 24th, 2021. Do I have any comments or edits on those minutes? If none, Commissioner Jacobs.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to move for approval, but I did want to make one comment, which was that I really wanted to thank all of the residents who did submit comments because we couldn't. Monica did a great job of summarizing them, but in our minutes, we got to see that there were 31 pages of comments have been submitted, 133 written comments. So I just want to really just thank the residents who submitted comments during our budget hearing and all of the very personal and heartfelt messages that we heard related to school funding, related to support for mental health services and non-law enforcement crisis response services. It really struck me when I read through all the pages of our minutes, how much effort we had heard put into the comments from residents in our community. Thank you. So I would move our minutes to be approved from May 24th.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Long? So it's been moved by Commissioner Jacobs, second by Commissioner Long to approve the minutes. Clerk will call for verbal vote.
Commissioner Alam. Aye. Commissioner Burns.
Aye.
Commissioner Carter.
Aye.
Vice Chair Jacobs.
Aye.
Chair Howerton.
Aye. Passes 5-0. Next, commissioners, we have our consent agenda. We have 22 items on the agenda. If
Commissioner
commissioners
Howerton.
Yes.
We have one ceremonial item, the Pride Proclamation. It was updated. It's not Monica's fault, it's mine.
All right, so.
In no way is it your fault.
Yeah.
You gave me permission last week to add it.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I thank you for doing that. And we would absolutely love for you to read that. So don't want to miss that at all.
Right. So for the public, Commissioner Howerton, the version she had, it is my fault. It is not her fault. She would not skip that.
Nope.
Thank you for those who aided in some of the development of this proclamation. I have added Ronald Antonovich to it. So we will make that update later. But Commissioner Howerton, with your permission, I see I see Commissioner Jacobs nodding. So
Go
if you
ahead.
would allow me, I will go ahead. Durham County government proclaims June 2021 Pride Month. Whereas the New York City Police raided the Stonewall Inn, a gay club located in Greenwich Village in New York City, and sparked a riot leading to 6 days of protests and violent clashes with law enforcement known as Stonewall riots, which later served as a catalyst for gay rights movement in the United States and around the world. And whereas on April 12, 1981, Ronald Antonovich was brutally attacked by a group who thought he was gay while sunbathing with at least 3 others on Little River in North Durham. And whereas the attackers shouted homophobic slurs and beat him, causing injuries to his head and kidneys, which resulted in Mr. Antonovich, 46, dying 3 days later of his injuries in the hospital, and his murder ignited a movement that goes on today. And whereas on June 27, just a few months after his murder, about 300 people marched through downtown Durham holding banners and signs for Our Day Out, a demonstration for gay and lesbian rights. And whereas the Matthew Shepard and James Beard Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act broadened the definition of hate crimes to include crimes motivated by sexual orientation or gender identity. And whereas we must acknowledge that LGBTQ community has faced and continues to face systemic discrimination, including restricted rights, social stigma, and challenges accessing healthcare and other basic social services, and startling rates of violence. And whereas the United States Supreme Court extended employment protections to LGBTQ workers by ruling on June 15, 2020, that the 1964 Civil Rights Act protects gay and lesbians. And whereas the Durham delegation of the General Assembly sponsored in each chamber, respectively, by Representative Marsha Moore, Representative Vernetta Alston, Senator Natalie Murdoch, Senator Michael Woodard, the Equality for All Act, which passed and will be law on July 1st, 2020, amended several state statutes and enacted others to provide uniform statewide protection from discrimination to multiple classifications of people in multiple parts of their life, including employment, public accommodations, housing, provisions of credit, and education. Whereas on April 12th, the Durham Board of County Commissioners supported the adoption of state and federal legislation to prohibit discrimination and hate crimes by aligning with President Joseph R. Biden's executive order that recognized the decision of the United States Supreme Court in BOCC v. Clayton, holding that Title VII's prohibitions on discrimination because of sex covers discrimination on the basis of gender identity and sexual orientation applied to the other federal laws prohibiting discrimination on the basis of sex, and ordered all federal agencies to take necessary steps in implementing action. And whereas despite the extraordinary progress, LGBTQ Americans still face discrimination simply for being who they are, and Durham County stands with the community in the struggle to ensure equal protection of all, while also defending and advocating for LGBTQ rights as human rights. And whereas the Durham County whereas Durham County government will continue to advocate for state and local statewide protections for all LGBTQ individuals to make our state a place where all people, regardless of their sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression, are treated with dignity and respect. Now, therefore, I, Chair Brenda Houch, and Chair of the Durham County Commissioners, and on the behalf of the Durham County Board of County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim June 2021 Pride Month in Durham, and call upon all of the people of Durham to recognize the achievements of the LGBTQ community, to celebrate the greater diversity of the American people, and to wave their flags of pride high. This, the 28th day of June, 2021.
Well, I just want to say thank you, Commissioner Burns, for putting that together. I mean, absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for working on that. I know that we started to do something, and it was, it's great. Don't even criticize it at all, because we attempted to do something that would no way have measured up to this. So thank you. Did I see your hand, Commissioner Lum?
Yes, thank you, Chair Howerton. I just wanted to thank Commissioner Burns so much for putting this together and bringing this forward to our board. And thank you to all the staff who also assisted with this. I just wanted to also ask, can we make a small adjustment? I noticed that Representative Hawkins was missing from the mention of—
Thank you, Commissioner Love. He would get me, so yes.
We will make that correction. Okay, were there any other comments? Commissioner Jacobs?
Thank you. Yes, and I want to thank you, Commissioner Burns, for working with others on this excellent proclamation to bring forward. And I just want to acknowledge that exactly 35 years ago today, on June 28th, 1986, was the first Pride March in Durham. So ironic. So this was a perfect time to read the proclamation. Really serendipitous that it is literally 35 years to the day. And of course, we know the history of Mayor Whipgully at that time declaring the first ever celebration of Pride Month in Durham. And you know, I've Commissioner Carter and I we've been in Durham for a little while, and I personally was fortunate enough to to know many of the people who really led the start of the lesbian gay movement in this community, and there are people that are here that are still leaders and a part of our community here today. So I just feel really grateful that Durham has really led the way in this state for LGBTQ rights. I think we still continue to lead the way, and I know that we are going to be, as our manager said, bringing back a non-discrimination ordinance very soon for our board to consider as the next step. So thank you so much for, again, Commissioner Burns.
Yeah, Commissioner Jacobs, I know that our attorneys have been working on the non-discrimination ordinance for some time. They want to make sure that it is absolutely right before they present it to us, because I've been following up with the attorneys and they said, just give them time to get it right. So that, because I don't think there's any other county that will have this kind of ordinance. So they're going to make it right, make sure it's right before they bring it to us. All right, any other comments? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to our consent agenda. We have 22 items on this agenda, and if the commissioners would like to pull any item for additional discussion, let me know, and we can put it at the end of the agenda for discussion. If not, I will ask our county manager, interim county manager, Hager, if she will go through the consent items for us.
Yes, good evening, commissioners. I will read the consent items. We first have 21-0339, extension of an amendment to contract with Southern Repair Services for COVID homeless housing. All right, the next one we have is a rooftop units at the Durham County Detention Center. And this is 21-0353. Amendment to the Nighthawk security contract for 21-22. Okay. Next, we have 21-0389. The board's request to approve a capital project amendment. 21 capital project amendment 40 to support Plan IS&T hardware. $56,036. $360. I can't read. Okay, the next one is 21-0392, approval of a lease agreement between Durham County and Alliance Health for office space in the Health and Human Services building at 414 East Main Street.
All right. Next, we have 21-0393, property tax releases and refunds for May 2021. Okay, we have 21-0398, Mako Medical Laboratories, LLC employee COVID-19 testing contract. Okay, we have 21-0401, quality mortuary contract amendment. 21-0403, contract amendment for Quality Print Pro. 21-0405, CJRC contract approval for telehealth services at the Durham County Detention Center. 21-0406, request to approve renewal of maintenance agreement for Envisionware hardware and services with additions of main library equipment. 21-0407, approval of fiscal year 21-22 service contract with Urban Ministries of Durham. 21-0409, Medicaid transformation, public health contracts with prepaid health plans, managed care organizations. 21-0410, Durham County's fiscal year 22 home and community care block grant funding plan to include a rate change for in-home aid services provided through the grant funding as allocated through the Department of Social Services. 21-0411, authorize the interim county manager to execute the master development agreement and the purchase and the sale agreement between Durham County, Laurel Street Residential, and Zom Living for the 500 East Main Street market rate housing development. We have 21 okay.
Hang on just a second. Commissioner Jacobs, did you want to pull that item?
No, I just wanted to, I had a quick comment for the benefit of the public, since it's a monumental step that we're taking with this item. I just wanted to, and I'm no lawyer, but I did try to read through I think it was a 90-page document, but I just wanted to say that I'm so, I'm really pleased that the way this is structured, that I think we can feel secure about the affordable housing units. That what's in the contract is that they will be affordable for at least 40 years. And then at that point, if there are questions about sustaining that, the properties will convert back to the county. And I think this is really significant because we've seen in places like Raleigh, which have been very unfortunate, where there have been affordable housing units that after a certain number of time that have really served the community, that have then actually the county has lost control of. So I just want to appreciate our attorneys for structuring this in a way that does protect the county and the public's interest. So I just wanted to emphasize that point. Thank you.
All right.
Could you continue?
Sure. Next we have 21-0413, budget ordinance amendment 21-118, appropriate $1 million of general fund balance and increase transfer to the benefits plan by the same amount to ensure all expenditures do not exceed budgeted appropriations. We have 21-0414, service contract with Velequez Digital Media Communications, LLC. We have 21-0416, interlocal cooperation agreement for the collection of taxes between Durham County and the town of Cary. Next, we have 21-0417, contract amendment extending Durham Children's Initiatives contract for the Durham County Early Childhood Action Plan. 21-0418, approve budget ordinance amendment 21 BCC 0119, appropriating 100,000 in risk management fund balance to cover unplanned COVID-19 and workers' compensated related expenses. 21-0419, public health, approval of contract between the Durham County and WellPath to provide comprehensive medical services for inmates in the county, the detention center, and residents of the Durham County Youth Home. 21-0425, approval of budget ordinance amendment 21 BCC 120, allocating $650,000 of set aside hiring freeze funding and approval of interlocal agreement between Durham County and the City of Durham for joint funding of the Durham Vaccine Equity Program. 21-0429, appoint voting delegate, National Association of Counties Annual Conference. And commissioners, that concludes the consent items.
Thank you, Interim Manager Hager. And I just want to, yes, hang on just 1 second. I see you. I want to say thank you to the board and for the public. These are items, just know that when we go through our consent agenda this way, I just want to say to the public, that's because we've done our homework. We have read through these items and we're just not passing them on. We have read them and asked questions and inquired, and the staff has responded back to us. So we're not just pushing these things through. We do the work that needs to be done. Commissioner Burns.
I'm looking at it now. I will ask the manager later. I don't agree with 21 I'll talk to the county manager later. And just so everyone knows, I'll be abstaining tonight. I don't agree with one of the
appropriations. You want to
appropriations.
pull?
No, we won't pull it because it has the votes. I just think that there are other steps that we can take towards vaccine equity. And I think when we talk about equity of doses, we need to talk about equity amongst the people that we contract with. So I will hold my comments until later, but just so everybody knows, I will be abstaining tonight from the vote.
We can pull that.
No, it's y'all, the votes are there, so let's not pull it. And I apologize because I'm just seeing that one on there, so that's my mistake. But thank you.
Okay, if there are no other comments, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I move to approve the consent agenda items.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Jacobs, second by Commissioner Carter. Roll call.
Commissioner Alon,
Aye.
Commissioner Burns,
I will be actually voting no based on the fact that Cure Americas has not played 5 community health organizations in Durham. So it's a no for me.
Commissioner Carter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Jacobs,
Aye.
Chair Howerton.
Aye. It's approved 4-0. 4-1. Okay, how do we do that? 4-1.
4-1.
Approval, yeah. Okay. All right. So next, commissioners, we have a public hearing on the comprehensive plan, community goals and objectives adoption. The board is requested to close a public hearing, which was considered at the June 15th meeting and approved a resolution adopting the community goals and objectives for the new comprehensive plan on today, which is June 28th. At this time, I will ask the clerk if there have been any, if she received any comments.
Chair Howerton, no comments have been received.
Okay. Any other responses? There's been no other responses. Hearing none, I will close the public hearing and bring this back to the board. Are there any additional comments from commissioners? Any other commissioners, any other comments? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and bring this back to the board. Okay, so if there are no comments, I will entertain a motion to adopt the resolution as Appendix 8, endorsing the proposed comprehensive plan goals and objectives.
I'll make that motion to approve the resolution adopting these beautiful community goals and objectives.
I need a second.
I will second that.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Carter, second by Commissioner Jacobs. And clerk will give a roll call.
Commissioner Alone,
Aye.
Commissioner Burns,
Aye.
Commissioner Carter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Jacobs,
Aye.
Chair Howerton.
Aye, passes 5-0. Thank you. So our next item, commissioners, is Durham Health, public health focused update on and he's here, Rod Jenkins, on our crisis, COVID-19 crisis. The board is requested to hear an update as to where we are right now in the county. Jenkins, I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and other members of the Board of County Commissioners, to our general managers, acting attorney, County Attorney Darby. You give me a second, I'll try to share my screen. Can you see my screen, Madam Chair?
Yes.
All right. Again, it brings me great pride to give you some updates about how well we're doing with COVID-19. I think this screen, this one says it all. You know, we're just at the point where you're either going to vax up and get your vaccine or mask up. There's nothing else to be said. Everyone knows how important the vaccines are, and with the Delta variant gaining ground and wreaking havoc on those populations that are not vaccinated, it's now or never when it comes to vaccines. Just want to let the general public know that COVID-19 is still a deadly respiratory pathogen and still killing people, and we certainly need to take it seriously. And while we're making some headway, we certainly need everyone to get vaccinated. Again, the good news is we currently only have 43 active cases. Deaths remain stable. Again, we still, our hearts and prayers go out to those who have lost loved ones to COVID-19. We're sitting at 25,608 inactive cases. There are 12 other deaths loosely associated with COVID-19 that we always keep track of. Our total thus far is 25,897. Of importance is the fact that our 7-day moving average is very, very low. We only had 6 positive cases for our 7-day moving average, and that's a decrease from 9 cases that were of the previous 2 weeks. So far in the month of June, there's only been approximately 185 total cases. We continue to keep racial equity lens on our COVID-19 response. And at present, the Hispanic population, they represent 22.12% of our cases, proportionally represented, but we're continuing to keep an eye on them. Our African-American population continues to be overrepresented at 58.42%. And we continue to work with our advocates, and we continue to go to the nook and crannies of the African-American community to promote vaccinations through vaccination events in our outreach efforts. Our white population continues to be underrepresented. As indicated on the screen, they are represented by 14.85% of all of our cases, though they make up 54% of our population. Our positive percentage is way low. Right now, it's at right about 1%. Previous weeks, it was at 0.7%. And I'm proud to say since May 23rd, it's remained below 1.5%. So again, the vaccine is really producing dividends, and we're certainly happy to bring you this good news. Per the CDC, our total fully vaccinated individuals in Durham, 157,414. Per the CDC, they have us right at about half of our percentage. Of course, you see in the next screen, the state of North Carolina says different. About 12 years of age and up, population, 56.9% have been fully vaccinated. Those who are 18 and up, close to 60%. Of course, our seniors, roughly right at about 80%, have been fully vaccinated. Of the most important thing I want to show you is the level of community transmission in Durham. That elusive blue low is what we have achieved. So right now, the community transmission in Durham is very, very low, and we hope that we can keep it that way. Per the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, 178,994 Durhamites have been at least vaccinated with one dose. Fully vaccinated per DHHS, 169,756, which represents 53% of our total population. So again, we still have our work cut out for us, and we're going to continue to outreach and provide the vaccine for those who want to partake in it. Again, through an equity lens, we'll just say 265,882 vaccinations have been performed through June 21st. 558 vaccination provider sites across North Carolina is where our Durham residents have gone. Of our white population, 53% have been at least received one dose, 52% are fully vaccinated. The African-American population, 37% have received one dose, where 35% have been fully vaccinated. Our Asian population continues to do well, although it's relatively low. 65% have received at least one dose, 62% fully vaccinated. Now, Latinx population continues to really, really partake in the vaccine. 44% of our Latinx population has been partially vaccinated, and roughly 40% has been fully vaccinated. Equity continues to be top of our mind in all the places that we've been. Monica has done a fantastic job of giving you our hours of operation, but this is just a small glimpse of all the places that we have been to provide outreach vaccinations, to include the Streetery, which was a nice event. Lighthouse Food Mart on Holloway Street, right on the side of the road. We've been there. Masterworks Beauty and Barbershop. We've been to a number of churches, to include Trinity United Methodist Church, Markham Chapel Missionary Baptist Church, Greater Emmanuel Temple of Grace. And we have partnered with a number of different schools, to include charter schools. Of course, we partnered with Durham Public Schools, War for Life, Chapel Hill Peds, Latin 19, and many, many others. And with the vaccine lottery in full swing and a winner has already been announced, we certainly hope to see a spike in vaccinations, because now the general public know that it's not lip service, it's truly real, and there are true winnings to be had. Speaking of vaccine equity, it is an honor to let you all know that we did it again. Durham Public Health has been awarded the grant from the United States Department of Health and Human Services Office of Minority Health for a partnership to improve health literacy and equity among communities of color in Durham. The grant total is $4 million to be administered over the next 2 years for our project titled Bull City Strong, Improving Health Literacy in Durham to further an equitable community response to COVID-19. Durham Public Health will be the lead in this collaborative project along with North Carolina Central University, Latin 19, and Project Access of Durham. A lot of our media partners and community partners who employ and support community health workers. So again, it's important for me to say to you, commissioners, that again, we're delighted at this news that we received last Friday. It goes a long way. So we're talking 2 years of this work, whereas some of our funding that we've allocated a little bit more short term. And this allows us to focus on things other than COVID-19, just health literacy overall. And I couldn't be more proud of my team and the fact that we'll be able to partner with some major stakeholders in Durham to get this done. That concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jenkins. I just have one quick question. Does that money come directly to Durham County?
Yes.
Good. Thank you. Questions from other commissioners or comments? And as always, thank you for the great job that you and your staff does. We just can't say enough about the work that you and your staff have done during this whole crisis, and we continue to appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We certainly appreciate the board's support.
Commissioners, comments? Commissioner Carter?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Rod. Thanks for this great report, and congratulations on that grant, $4 million. Wow. It really makes me want to read more about it. Is there some information where we could read about it and learn the more specifics about the wonderful programming?
Yes, ma'am. The PIOs are working together to craft a very nice media release. We're just waiting to coordinate with our partners for some brief words to add to the media release, and we will certainly have a lot of information to follow, but we appreciate the support.
Well, that's a huge grant, and so proud of our Durham County team, and thank you so much for your leadership towards that end.
Thank you, Commissioner Carter.
Okay, other commissioners, comments, questions? Commissioner Jacobs, and then I'll go to you, Commissioner Long.
No, we'll swap because I did see Commissioner Lom up first. So I'll go after you, Commissioner Lom.
Thank
Yeah,
you, Vice Chair Jacobs.
say whichever.
Thank you, Chair Howerton. Rod, just thank you so much. And also I want to point out Rod has been, and his team have been out in the community like every weekend, and even sometimes out during the weekdays doing community events and making sure they're bringing the vaccine to the people. So I really want to give him a shout out, especially in this burning heat. They're out there making sure that everyone's able to get their vaccine. And also, I'm really liking this new mustache, Rod. It looks very nice.
Just try to follow the acting county attorney, that's all. We appreciate that. Well, it was great. It's great to see the majority of you. I think I saw most of you a couple of Fridays ago. And, you know, again, we appreciate your support of the vaccination efforts, and more importantly, the appreciation of the support of Bull City United and their Summer of Peace. We're right there together with them. We've been fortunate to be able to be a part of all of their community events, and it was great to see you all.
I may just add one more thing. I just want Rod to be able to answer, just for the public's knowledge, that the Delta variant, the COVID vaccines that are out right now prevent against the Delta variant. Correct, Rod? Dr. Jenkins?
Correct.
So
Okay.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
I'll just jump in. And Rod, I also want to say congratulations. This is fantastic news about the grant. And I really love the title of it, because I think, like so many other things about COVID, we've realized that this is an opportunity to address longstanding issues. So I love the focus on health literacy for our community, because at some point there's going to be another pandemic too, and we want to have really made some progress when that time comes around. I just want to say I appreciate all of the on the street efforts and all the partnership with community groups, and I'm really excited about what our board adopted tonight, where we just approved $650,000 to focus on vaccine equity in partnership with the city. And the model is partnering with community groups like El Centro, Project Access, La Semilla, Durham Tri, War for Life, CARE, Student U, Peach, Slice 2325, and the Back on the Bull Community Health Ambassadors. And I really hope, I feel like Durham is leading the way, here, you getting this grant, all the work that we've been doing. And I don't know of any other North Carolina community that's as focused as we are on really addressing this gap, because as you said, with the Delta variant, this is not over. And it's just, I really worry about everyone who's not vaccinated yet. And, we have these vaccines, and it's literally, President Biden was here giving the same message that, the best way to, save your life or save the life of people around you is very simple. Just get the vaccine. We know the cure. I hope that this whole effort with the vaccine equity campaign and the efforts that you and all of your staff are doing, that we will get there in our community, because I know our community cares. You go around and people are still wearing masks in Durham. It's like, people really care about each other, and we want to take care of each other. So again, thank you as always for your great report, and to all of your staff. I want to express my gratitude.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. We appreciate that.
Commissioner Burns?
Yeah, so Commissioner Howerton, first off and foremost, Rod, it's not easy to get a $4 million grant even in these times. So hats off to you and your staff. I'm not proud of the money that we gave out earlier, and I was going to hold my comments. And Commissioner Jacobs, this has nothing to do with you. This has to do with us sticking to what we said we would do. Now, if we are truly committed to equity, if we are truly committed to making sure that individuals in this community get vaccinated, especially when they don't trust doctors, when they don't trust public bodies, then we have to also make sure they trust the people who administer this and the folks that go into their communities. So unlike another public body, I am not comfortable with giving money to a group that is currently under investigation and has 250 line items in question. They blew a $789 million advance, and between Durham, Orange, and Warren County, they have not paid community-based organizations. So while I say hats off to Rod, what I would respectfully ask of you, I see that you already have some subs added as we move forward with this project. And as you as the PM and the project manager, and as you and Joanne move forward to get this stuff done, I want you all to make sure that we don't sideline and give out contracts to people. 3 individuals wrote 4-page papers about how they did not want to give out 4 contracts over $45,000. So then what we do, we decided we want to do an interlocal agreement so that we can sidestep that protocol, so that we can give $650,000 to somebody else. So I'm asking you, with these grant dollars, especially with the audit and protocols being as stringent as they are with the state and with the feds, and especially with DHHS, that you do not partner with any bad actors as we move forward in this process. So again, I congratulate you. My comments are not about you. I take my hat off to you. I honestly think that if it wasn't for you, we would not have saved as many lives as we have. But we will not be giving credit to Cure Americas for saving one life, because they don't have not one community health worker. They got a bunch of subs that they don't pay. And that's the truth. So hats off to you, and good luck to the community healthcare workers that they have subbed with. And in the event they don't get paid, in the event that the city takes our money and they don't get paid, I hope that I can count on my colleagues on this body who say that they care about equity to go back and get our money and make sure that the people in our community, as well as the people in other counties who have been complaining, actually get the money that they're owed. I see some of y'all nodding your heads. We're going to see, and in agreement, not in disagreement. I see some of you nodding your heads in agreement. Let's make sure that we do that. And that's all I got to say about that.
Thank you, Commissioner Burns.
Thank you, Commissioner Burns. I have a question for the manager. What's the even though we approve that tonight, what's the process for ensuring these dollars are tracked?
Yes, ma'am. that we have a very stringent compliance review process that we go through before vendors are paid.
Perfect as is.
And as a matter of fact, we have in draft form a letter from the state auditor about Durham County's practices, and that we had a clean audit with what we did with our review, our recent review on the CARES Act dollars. From a compliance perspective, and Susan can chime in, the unified grant guidelines are pretty stringent as far as protocol on what you do, how you do it. And we didn't bend any rules that made people frustrated. And from our perspective, the way we manage the dollars, we anticipate it would be done the exact same way. And Susan, were you going to weigh in any?
Yes, part of the SAP financial system is a grants management module. Any federal awards, state awards, or grant awards are tracked through that GM module, which is the acronym for short. And that's the same methodology we use with the CARES Act funding. And as Claudia just said, we just received our audit report back with no findings. So the internal controls are there, and everything's closely monitored by our compliance division in finance.
What we will do is follow back up with the city on this one. Originally, I thought it was going to be a bid out project.
That's what I thought too.
And so, but it's one that council, they could move forward with it not being bid. So we will follow up with them to ensure that the dollars and the approaches align with the guidelines that we have to follow. Otherwise, we'll have to pay it out of pocket, because we're planning to use pay it out of pocket. We would have to use local dollars versus the ARPA dollars to support it. And so, but I'm sure the city will be in compliance and do their reviews, but we will do additional follow-up on that.
Yeah, because if you've got one board member saying that there have been incidents where the money has not been given out correctly, then
We will follow up.
we need to follow up. Yeah.
We'll follow up with the city manager and get back with the board.
Thank you. All right, thank you. All right, thank you so much, Ron. If there are any other questions or comments for our health director? If not, thank you. And again, congratulations, Roger, for all the money that you're bringing into us as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So the next item, Commissioners, 210427, American Rescue Plan Act update and broadband planning. The board is requested to receive an update on the American Rescue Plan Act funds. These funds would deliver $350 billion for state, local, territorial, and tribal governments to respond to the COVID-19 emergency. Interim Manager Claudia Hager will begin this discussion.
Good evening, Commissioners. Tonight we'll give you some quick updates on ARPA funding, and I will be joined by my colleague Jody Miller, as well as Greg Marrow. He will share about the broadband update, and we will move through these again quickly, and saving some time for the board. As you know, there's there are webinars that will happen this week. There are 2 planned that are facilitated through the governor's office with joint partnerships through the North Carolina Association of Counties and the many others. It's probably about 6 or 7 other partners. So we anticipate learning even more. That has been the opportunity with this, and that it's lots of resources coming down the pipeline, but with that, timing is of the essence, and that we're learning often weekly refined guidance, which does make it a little tricky as we do our planning at the local level. So we'll give you some quick reminders, talk about process updates, and share a little bit about broadband. And so I'll now go to the next slide. And Durham County's allocation is $62.4 million. And we'll share with you what we've budgeted thus far in the current budget process. We'll also talk about engagement and what that looks like. And we can go to the next slide. And I'm not sure if Jody is available. If she hears.
I am Manager Hager. I can pick it up from here if you would like me to. So good evening, commissioners. We're going to spend a few minutes, as Manager Hager mentioned, sort of providing you a recap and reminder of some of our discussions to date on ARPA funding and our strategies for putting together Durham County's plan. We're also going to provide you some updates on our first community engagement activity that we partnered with the City of Durham on. After I have spent a few minutes providing the updates to the board, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Director Mara with IS&T, and he's going to give us an update on broadband access. So just a reminder, we have a few key dates that we want to remind you of. First, the Treasury portal is now open for counties to register and request recovery funds. July 9th is a deadline for submitting comments to the U.S. Treasury on the interim final rules. As Manager Hager mentioned, the Treasury is still in the process of refining the rules and guidelines for the ARPA funding, and they provided an opportunity for communities across the country to weigh in on that item. In August, we have deadline to submit our first interim report to U.S. Treasury. Part of the ARPA funds, as well as all the federal funds that the county received, requires submitting reports on what we're spending on and how we're spending those dollars. And so you'll see in August, we have our first report due. In October, we have another deadline to submit our first quarterly project and expenditure report. This is part of that reporting requirement that I just mentioned. In December of 2024, once again, to remind the board, funds must be incurred and obligated by that point, and funds must be expended by December 2026. Monica, if you'd move to the next slide, please. So there are 5 primary ways outside of the lost revenue allowance that counties may invest their ARPA funds. And we've talked about these areas before. The first looks at support a public health response. The second looks at to address negative economic impacts. The third looks at replacement of public sector revenue loss. We also can use the funding for premium pay for essential workers, and the funding can be used for water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. Next slide, Monica. As we've discussed earlier in the month, GFOA has provided some guiding principles as communities think about putting together their plans for spending their ARPA dollars. One of the guiding principles that they have put out there is to make sure that communities take their time and carefully consider their plans and how they would like to use their funding. If you'll recall, the ARPA funding is issued in 2 tranches to local governments. Also is providing the guidance of using other dedicated grants and programs first when possible, and to save the ARPA funds for priorities that are not eligible for federal and state assistance. Also, the guidance has been provided regarding ARPA funds that they should be spread out over the qualifying period that is through that December 2024 I just mentioned to enhance budgetary and financial stability. And finally, making sure that communities give themselves adequate time to consider the alternatives and the prudent use of ARPA fundings so that communities can make sure that resources are used in the best way, considering that it's temporary funding. Next slide, Monica. Grant compliance, you heard Manager Hager just talk about compliance and how important compliance is with any of our state and federal dollars we receive. And so compliance continues to be in the forefront of project development to ensure that procurement and contractual obligations align with the uniform grant guidelines. Part of the strong compliance component is keeping good records for that reporting. And to remind the board again, the ARPA funds will be reported on the single audit annually. Next slide, Monica. We talked about draft guiding principles for the county's ARPA funds earlier in the month, and I just wanted to take a moment just to remind the board of some of the draft guiding principles that we'll be using as we develop the county's plan. First looks at giving priority to those areas that have been identified in the board strategic plan, capital plans, or other assessments endorsed by the board. Looking to leverage our ARPA dollars with other state, federal, and local dollars that are coming in. Prioritization being given to address equity, including things like health disparities, closing the achievement gap, infrastructure support in the unincorporated areas, and funding to support minority-owned businesses. Evaluate infrastructure needs to address the compliance workloads. As you'll hear us continue to say, compliance is a big part of spending these dollars. We need to make sure that we have the right infrastructure in place to include people to make sure that we're able to provide that high level of compliance and reporting that we need to for the ARPA dollars. Establish framework for community discussions and input. And coordinate these discussions with our partners when possible. This also means being mindful and accommodating our non-English speaking and hard of hearing residents as part of the community discussions and engagement. Next slide, Monica. Also thinking about our draft guiding principles, thinking about how we leverage the ARPA dollars in terms of the reimbursements with FEMA. This is something we've been doing since the start of the pandemic, and really looking at how do we leverage those dollars and make sure that when we can get reimbursed by FEMA, we do that, but then we use ARPA dollars or federal dollars for other initiatives and services as well. We've talked about identifying strategic one-time projects for our ARPA dollars. We know that this is, although it's a lot of money in a short period of time, it is one-time money, and we need to be mindful about that. And looking at investments in terms of also sustainability strategies. If the funding is going to require more than a year or two of funding, how are we going to sustain that moving forward? And looking at establishing a rubric to evaluate and rank projects to ensure that optimal and the highest use of funds is achieved. Next slide, Monica. So looking at our ARPA allocations to date, as Manager Hager mentioned, total earmark to date is $5.1 million. On the slide, you'll see a list of those things that have been identified for that $5.1 million. Everything from our janitorial contracts for cleaning standards within county buildings, increase in security services due to COVID-19, the screening services at HHS, the courthouse, the libraries, our ongoing support for our non-congregate housing, specifically related to our homeless population here in Durham. Looking at supporting the Durham Convention Center and their lost revenue over the pandemic, lost revenue also for court facility fees. We've talked about the vaccine equity program and the community health workers program, also to partially offset the investment in additional school health nurses, and then support of our minority business infrastructure support. Next slide, Monica. This slide provides an example of a list of other possible budget discussions related to funding gaps and how our ARPA dollars could be used. And we talked about these items quite a bit during our budget discussions a few weeks ago. And the funding can be used, potentially can be used on things like support of the DSS grant relief program for our long-term homeowners at or below 30% AMI, our behavioral health infrastructure, workforce development, food insecurity, housing insecurity, pre-K and K-12 initiatives, broadband support, and we'll be hearing more about that in just a few minutes, infrastructure support for public safety, human services, one-time bonuses for public safety and human services staff. So this is provided as just sort of a high level, broader list of potential other areas where the county may look at investing their ARPA funds. Next slide, Monica. Engagement approaches. An important part of this discussion is the engagement and getting feedback and insight from the community about the strategies and plan that the county should implement in order to invest these important dollars. So there are sort of three areas that we've been working on in this approach, and we're still building the strategy out, but wanted to share this with the board this evening. First is to integrate both web-based and face-to-face engagement activities. With people getting vaccinated now, being able to host some of those face-to-face engagement opportunities are now available to us. And so how do we leverage and integrate both the web-based and also face-to-face engagement activities? To optimize feedback loops within our existing infrastructures, how do we really look at our existing engagement infrastructures and tools and make sure that we are engaging and using those tools in the best way to get feedback from our community? And then using a variety of tools, surveys, social media, traditional mailings to promote engagement and solicit feedback. Next slide, Monica. So we had our first ARPA community engagement event earlier in the month on June 8th. It was a joint event with the city. It was an event called Budget Healing, and it occurred in the early part of June. The focus of the virtual meeting, really focused on health, housing, education, and employment. There will be future city-county engagement opportunities, and we are now in the planning phase for that. There will also be events only for county residents, especially those within the unincorporated areas that we'll be including as part of our strategy development. And we're going to provide more updates to the board in August on specifically where we are with that development, working with the city, but also looking at those events that are going to be more county specific. Next slide, Monica. Okay. And just a few reminders and next steps. As Manager Hager has mentioned, the federal and state guidance on ARPA allocation continues to change and evolve. And so we'll continue to receive that information weekly. There are several events that are actually scheduled this week to provide more information and updates as to those guidelines. For time-sensitive projects that require funding as early as this summer, they'll be presented at either the July or August board meetings for consideration and discussion. There'll be another ARPA funding update during our August board meeting. And during that August board meeting, the staff plans to bring back a draft rubric for discussion on how we evaluate projects and requests and rank projects during that August meeting timeframe. And I believe that is it. So I'm going to turn the presentation over to Director Morrow to give the board an update on the broadband internet access update. So Greg, are you available?
Good evening. Yes, I am available.
Great. I'm going to hand it over to you.
All righty. Thank you. And good evening, commissioners. Good evening, County Manager and Attorney Darby.
Good evening, Greg.
Good evening to all of the residents who are listening in. So if we can, what we're going to do this evening is just give you a quick update on broadband, particularly here in the state and then here in the county. And so we can go to the next slide, please. So we put this slide in just to kind of level set, make sure that we're all on the same page, right? When we hear this term digital divide, you know, in the past, we would think that this term simply meant those who do not have access to internet services, but it's a little bit broader. When we use the term the digital divide, we're really talking about those who have access to technology. That could be computers, those who have access to the internet, and those who have access to digital literacy training versus those who do not. And so when we use that term, the digital divide, we're including all of that as part of that terminology. And it affects all generations. It affects both rural and urban communities. So when we say digital divide, we're not just talking about rural communities. Oftentimes people hear that term and think we're just talking about the rural communities. But no, it affects a wide variety of industries, a wide variety of sectors, and a wide variety of our community. We can go to the next slide. So there are different aspects of the digital divide, and we identify some of them on the chart to the right here. So one is affordability, right? So you may have internet access in your community, but you might not be able to afford the services. And that's an example of a digital divide issue. We know that particularly here in Durham County, we know that we have some availability issues. Availability meaning access to internet services or the lack of access to internet services. And devices. We have cases where residents may not have access to devices. And when we say devices, we're talking about computers, we're talking about smart devices, devices that will give you access to the internet services. And of course, when we talk about digital literacy, we're talking about, you know, being able to get on the internet, right? You may have a device, but now you may not, you may need some training on how to access the different services provided by the internet. And, you know, through as a result of what we went through over the last year or so, certainly we've seen, you know, the homework gap, kids not having access to the internet to access their homework. And then the picture here, you know, over the last year, schools got very creative in putting Wi-Fi internet access on school buses and driving those buses out to areas in the city and county where, you know, internet access did not exist. And certainly through our public libraries throughout the state, not just here in the county alone, many are providing free public Wi-Fi and other technologies for residents in the community. And certainly telehealth is picking up. And we have it on the chart simply from the standpoint that without internet access, people in the community cannot take advantage of telehealth services. And you might be asking, well, what are the asterisks on the chart? The asterisks on the chart are areas where Durham County is playing right now. We'll certainly put up a chart to give you more information towards the end of the presentation on how we play in the area of availability, devices, digital literacy, etc. Next chart, please. So not going to spend a whole lot of time on these charts. These are maps from the North Carolina broadband map from our ArcGIS services. And if you see here on the left, the one area that we certainly want to point out is the percent population with available fiber technology. And this is throughout the state now. So we're looking at only, you know, less than 40, only about 40% of residents throughout the state of North Carolina have access to fiber technology, right? So that means, you know, for those who do not, they have to depend upon other types of services like wireless or DSL or even satellite services if they are available within that community. If we go to the next slide. Again, on this particular slide now, we're drilling down into Durham County and taking a look at Durham County specifically. And you can see here on the left-hand side with the arrow pointing, again, this is pointing at the percent population, again, with available fiber technology. And you can see only about 60, a little bit less than 60% of the county have access to fiber. Again, the other 40% would have to find a way to connect to the internet either via, you know, Wi-Fi technology, DSL technology, or satellite technology. We can go to the next slide. And this one here, just again, looking at Durham County, if you look at the, on the left-hand side, talks about the percent broadband subscription. So about 74% of the county residents have broadband subscription. And if you look at on the right-hand side of the chart with the arrow pointing, you see the percent of households with no internet access at all. So we're getting up to about 10% of households within the county, right here in Durham County, who have no internet access at all. Next slide. So we did a preliminary study back in 2019. Matter of fact, we had this study commissioned, this study done by the company who's working over in Orange County. And they did a preliminary study for us looking at the county. And the bullets on the chart basically summarize the study. They basically came back and said broadband is very limited in the northern part of the county. There are no present fixed wireless companies offering services in that part of the county. And as we just talked about in the previous maps, fiber is very limited when you get into this part of the county, and microwave or satellite will be needed to distribute broadband services. There are some strategically located towers, if we're looking at Wi-Fi services, that we might be able to take advantage of. And there are some cable modem services in this part of the county as well, but there is still a big piece of the county where there are no services. And then cell coverage is limited in the northern half of the county, and there are some small pockets in the south as well. So when we get to the northern part of Durham County, you can see that there are some broadband challenges in this area of our county. Next slide. So we were excited. One of the services, Starlink, many of you may be familiar with the Starlink services. This is a service provided by, I'm sure most of us have heard of Elon Musk, CEO for the company Tesla. Well, Tesla is, they're putting up thousands of satellites in the air, and they're really trying to provide internet services to those areas who live, those residents who live in remote or rural communities with limited access to internet service providers. Now, there are some challenges with this service, right? I mean, you still have to, if there are trees in the way, then that signal becomes very weak. So there are certainly some challenges. And I will say that the Starlink service is in its early stages. Matter of fact, we have had some conversations with Starlink. We were hoping to partner with them and do a trial, but we found out that the services here in Durham and particularly in the area that we were interested in is very limited in 2021. So we're hoping, and as they said to us in 2022, they will have more services available in this area for us to take advantage of. Next slide. So just to spend a few minutes talking about federal and state funding, if we can go to the next slide. So I think most of us have heard about the federal funding. They have a program called the Emergency Broadband Benefit. This is a program where they will give eligible households, a stipend per month to help with broadband service and associated equipment rentals. And you can see here, I'm not going to go through the numbers, but you can see for those who qualify what those numbers are. So this is a federal program that was announced probably about a month ago now, that the community can take advantage of. Again, those households that qualify for this service. Next slide. And if we look at what's going on here in the state, we look at Governor Cooper's plan. He is proposing investing $1.2 billion in federal American Rescue Plan funds in three particular areas, right? Infrastructure and access. So this is an area that we really have to keep our eye on, because this is really what the challenge is in the northern part of Durham County, and that's infrastructure and access. And then, of course, they're planning to address affordability and digital literacy. And they even break out how those funds will be allocated over the next 4 years. And so the area that we're monitoring very closely is the $600 million that will be dedicated to build out crucial infrastructure in unserved areas to give internet speeds of, up to, 100 up, 20 down. But what we're trying to get here is that simply we're excited about the dollars that they have allocated, and we will certainly be monitoring and tracking those dollars to see how that might play out in the northern part of Durham County. So we're certainly going to keep an eye on Governor Cooper's broadband plan to help close the digital divide. Next slide. And so this chart here, getting down to the end, this chart simply summarizes where we play today, where we are providing some services today. So in the area of availability, Certainly, our Durham, our public libraries offer computers with internet access and free public Wi-Fi for public use in all locations. When it comes to devices, we have a Wi-Fi checkout program through Durham County Public Libraries. And as you all know, we donate computers to Camden Institute and Triangle E-Cycling. When it comes to digital literacy, we provide or participate in digital literacy programs offered through the public libraries through partnerships with Digital Durham. And of course, when it comes to telehealth, we are certainly in that business. Our departments, DSS, Public Health, and there was an agenda item for the sheriff tonight where they will be providing telehealth services as well. So you can see that we're active in those areas where we certainly can readily provide assistance. Certainly some of the other areas we will be monitoring what's going on with the state broadband office and the federal government. Next slide. So this slide, the last slide, just kind of summarizes next steps for us. And as I said before, very excited about Governor Cooper's plan for funding to expand broadband infrastructure and how we might be able to leverage some of those dollars here in Durham County. We certainly want to leverage partnerships with the city, county, and Durham Public Schools in this space. And we want to identify potential pilot projects to test expansion, including addressing affordability issues through grants and other approaches. And we're looking at community engagement. We're certainly having conversations with people in the community, particularly in the Northern Durham, Northern Durham section of our community. And we've talked about an engineering study. I put dependent on the state approach. We certainly don't want to get ahead, right? So we certainly want to monitor what the state is planning to do so that we can, again, leverage those capabilities through Durham County government. So that's a quick update on what we're doing in the broadband space. Thank you.
And commissioners, before we entertain questions, one of the things that we will be coming back to the board with is from an infrastructure perspective and support and staffing, looking at either a shared position through Greg's shop or full-time to help us manage these next steps. Greg and his team are beyond stretched, and we're looking at administrative operations overall. This is one that I know that he sort of carries the water, and then it's another one. And some of the rest of us have also sort of fielded community members' concerns. And I truly empathize with them. I know some residents that we talk with, because of their area in the county, they have issues with having landline access.
Yes.
And they can't get the wireless access for the towers for cell phone to have good delivery. Well, so it is complex, and we know we will have to do a multi-pronged approach. Some communities in the state and other places, they have offered grants for providers to extend the fiber to neighborhoods, especially when they're close. And we definitely see that as a potential for us. As Greg also mentioned, we early in the process, before the feds allocated their dollars to support families that didn't have access, and it was affordability issue. That was what we were considering, that we could use some of our dollars to offer grants for families to help them subsidize their broadband expense, or their for the internet. So now that a pretty significant cohort of residents are covered, we can look at the areas that may be at a higher tier that are not covered, because we know there is still sometimes an access issue because of affordability. So we do, again, plan to come back with a couple of different models. We do await some. We are going to wait some to hear what the state's going to do, because this is a heavy lift. We had, and it's one though that is in the forefront, I know, of commissioners across the state and county managers. But we do want to try to coordinate because it's so expensive. Yeah. And so we are asking some patience, but we also know we have to keep moving. And so when we come back in August, we anticipate even more understanding from the state, but can show some more framework for the engagement. As Greg shared, that's top priority. And we do plan to do face-to-face with our northern community partners, because many of them, unfortunately, will not be able to view us online. And so, but aside from that, we know we're going to do part of that face-to-face engagement as well with other community members, even if it's not a access issue because of technology. So we'll entertain any questions.
Any questions or concerns from commissioners? Commissioner Jacobs?
I'm going to defer first to Commissioner Burns, and then I'll go after her. Thank you. She had her hand up first.
I'll be very quick. Jody, Greg, as always, wonderful job. I appreciated both the presentations. Claudia, thank you for letting them come up here. You know, you delegated some, gave you a bit of a break. What I did want to point out, Jody, I like some of the ideas that you brought forth, and I know that you'll be getting a ton of ideas from us. I think there was one time y'all asked us for 5 ideas and we sent y'all 52. So just be prepared for like that water slide. I do want to go back to a couple of things. You know, as we do those engagements, I just hope that if we're not working with communications, or if y'all are not working with us, I know you all get updates from the County Managers Association. We also get updates from the governor's office, and we get updates through the County Commission Association. I've been seeing a series of surveys that have been going around the county and the city saying what we should spend our ARPA dollars on. And the thing is, these notions are wonderful and beautiful, but in no way do they align with the things that ARPA dollars can actually pay for. So I do want us to make sure that that communication component is there when we go out and we talk to these communities, so that they have realistic expectations. Because I imagine we're going to get some of the results from the survey with like these 10-page letters, and I'll be honest enough to say, hey guys, even I am creative, but I don't know how we're going to be able to pay for that. And I don't want you all to be pigeonholed when I know that every day you all are working very hard, paying attention to what's happening at Congress. At the County Commissioners Board meeting, they were up there this week talking about may we like that, may we spend it on this, may we spend it on that. And it was like, yes here, no there, yes maybe. So just those things, I hope we can identify and sit down. And somebody else brought up a really interesting notion. And I don't know if Jay or Perry, I might follow back up with them later. But I want us all to think about the fact that, you know, we already saw what our school board was thinking about spending money on, like ventilation. So we're going to see ventilation pop up, not just here, but we're going to see it pop up in all 100 counties, but not just all 100 counties, all of our neighbors, because there's a specific line item in there for that. So I think what we're going to run into, and this might, a commissioner brought this up from another county, and I had to let it rest on me over the weekend. And I want y'all to center yourselves around this thinking, if you could, so that we can plan accordingly. I think we'll be fine, because it's Durham and the infrastructure is bigger. And so we can go out and get bigger bids. But I think what we're going to run into as a state or as a nation is the same thing that we ran into with nurses. From a workforce standpoint, Claudia, you're not here, we will not have enough people who can dig dishes and lay lane before December 31st, 2024. We are not going to have enough people who can put in HVAC systems before December 31st, 2024. And I say that because October is when we have to have the money, we have to have the projects identified, right? October 2023, and then it has to be spent and all used. And I just know that there might be some things, even if we identify everything this year, putting it out to bid and then having somebody, even some of your big boys are not going to be able to sub it. And even if they do sub it, we will not, we just don't have the people. So I do want us as commissioners and as a community, as we're building these projects, we really need to be thinking about the workforce development component. I know that Recovery and Resiliency, that office, as they were doing recovery in the East, one of the things that they ran into was we don't have enough people to handle wastewater. We don't have enough people to handle bridges. So I just want us to think about that workforce component as we think about how we're going to spend about $300 million. So I'll stop there.
Well, that's a great point. I will say, weigh in real quickly. Prime example is the engineering study that the board approved for us to move forward with last year this time. COVID hit, the vendor, his workload, they had more work than they had ability staffing wise to move forward. We then went back out to bid to see what the market looked like. Could we get someone else? They were still, they said we can get to you. And I think January, February, we went to see, well, can we get someone else before then? And that we did that at probably October-ish timeframe. Well, February, March timeframe, they were still the best that we could do. So here we are, and they're now, trying to move forward, but they're still challenged. So that is our concern. And I know for this broadband especially, that is one of the biggest barriers that counties see, but it's probably one of the most important. All of the areas are important when we talk about access, economic development, and many other areas of importance when we try to address this broadband gap.
And Commissioner Burns, if I could just respond to your suggestion and your thoughts on the communication piece. I mean, that's a really important point of the engagement. And so the board is going to hear at the board meetings and the community engagement sessions over and over, sort of very similar to the slides that I presented tonight on the guidelines of what you can spend the money on and what you can't, so that we can make it clear as we do the engagement. And there's lots of need out there and lots of great ideas, but there are limitations on what we can do with the funding. And that's why this leveraging is so important. Looking at opportunities for leveraging dollars, looking for things that we can use that we can still reimbursed through FEMA. What are the other grants and other funding opportunities that will be available? Because there's a lot of ARPA money that's coming to communities across the state, but we also know there's a lot of other federal dollars flowing from federal agencies and offices to communities. And so how do we go after those dollars? How do we leverage those dollars to meet our community needs? And so that's going to be a really important piece of the engagement work that we do, but also the efforts that we try to continue to make sure we understand as the guidelines continue to evolve, what we're able to do with the funding and how we're able to leverage it from a larger community perspective.
Thank you, ma'am. Look forward to champion you both and everybody else. So thank you.
I want to say thank you to Claudia, Greg, and Jody. I'm sorry, what did you say?
I thought Commissioner Jacobs was after me. I was just saying so we didn't forget her. I didn't know if we were moving on.
I hadn't forgotten her. I'll
okay,
get to her in a minute. Okay. I forgot my line of thought.
You can beat me later.
So I know that we will hear this conversation again and again to ensure that we spend this money the best way. And what I will be advocating for is that we make sure that we take care of our citizens in the outlying areas, that we do more for them with some of this funding than we have been doing. So I know I've spoken to Claudia about that, and I know with broadband, that's going to be great for the outlying areas, but for us to look to see what else can we do to support our citizens in the outlying areas. So we just need to show them some love. Commissioner Jacobs, do you have something?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Well, first, thank you, Jody and Greg, for this presentation. Going back to the ARPA funding, I'm really excited that we are, to Commissioner Burns' point, I'm really excited that we are moving forward, and I really appreciate all the progress on just the framework for decision making and the timeline, and the fact that we're going to take up consideration of a draft rubric in August. I think that the idea of we're moving forward at a steady pace is reassuring to me. I did want to ask, at some point, will we get a synopsis of the feedback that did come in from that June 8th meeting?
Yes, we certainly will. Timing wise, with budget season, with both jurisdictions sort of in the throes of everything, we weren't ready to share tonight, but within the next, in upcoming weeks, we'll get that to the board. And to your point, Commissioner Burns, it is our desire to make sure that as we continue these engagement discussions, that we narrow and manage expectations. And I always like to say it's 60 million, not 60 billion. And so, because when we hear all these ideas, which are plentiful, it is hard trying to manage how do we prioritize. So, yes.
And it's not 60 million anymore because we spent 5.1 million. We're down to 57.
Right.
To that point. Yes. And I did want to follow up, Greg, also with your presentation. It is really, I mean, all of us, I know I've been funneling people to you, Greg, for years. And, this has been an ongoing issue that's, again, been exacerbated by the pandemic. It's just having access to the devices, to the technology. It's as fundamental as any other utility now to function in our society.
Yes.
I mean, for everything. So I was really glad to see the study that at least has been done. And I'm wondering about the action steps that were laid out at the end. There were like 5 different action steps. And I think to how we're going to balance, waiting on some of the possible money, but then also maybe getting started with some type of pilot and having some type of a timeline on this issue.
Yeah, that's a great point, and Greg can weigh into it. And one of our residents that we have almost quarterly meetings with, they always are trying to see, how are we moving down the path towards closing the gap as it relates to broadband. And we will come back with some options. We have a lot of ideas, but we're just wanting to make sure that we're clearer with what the state is doing.
Yes.
And that we have the same sense of urgency as the residents do to make sure we are as creative as possible. And I think that timing wise, we will try to move as fast as we can. But again, it is a supply demand issue with workforce and trying to get folks to actually do it. So we will move fast. And we also know with this, because as I shared the example with us just getting the engineering study done. That's a simple thing. And so, and we went out, we had to go back again. So we know this will be a unique scenario and how we get across the finish line, but we have to remain vigilant. And so that's the other piece that we're going to have to, from a staffing perspective, do some things differently, because we have a good problem that there are more resources to that. to allocate, but we need someone that's dedicated so that they can watch all these moving parts with precision. Yeah.
Yep. And the only thing I will add is we're certainly turning over every stone that we can, looking for options. Matter of fact, Cisco just announced maybe a couple of weeks ago that they're launching a rural broadband center in the Triangle to tackle the digital divide. We're already reaching out to them. Again, we're trying to see, hey, can we partner on, maybe tackling a challenge here in our local community. So we're not sitting and waiting. We're certainly as these things come up, we're reaching out to see if we can build a partnership and go forward. So, and we will continue to do that. Yeah.
I've been quite impressed with Greg's skills. I'm like, how?
Well, I just want to thank. I'm just excited that we're at this point. Thank you both. And one last comment is, I'm so glad about the partnership with Digital Durham, and wondering. I feel like I know our PR department is putting it out on social media and all that, but I'm wondering what else we might be able to do to help get out the word about the emergency broadband benefit. It is complicated because people have to actually apply for it. There's like an application process. It's really not that straightforward. And you don't have to answer me now, but I guess it would be great, maybe leveraging, with Digital Durham or somebody who can help us have a more focused effort on, like, hey, have an event where people come or get virtual support with filling out the applications or whatever, because it is a little bit complicated. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you so much.
Commissioner Carter.
Thank you, and thanks so much for the report. It was really great to see it chock full of information. I was unable to open it, so I just wanted to be sure we get a different link, I guess, or something. I couldn't open it on either my iPad or my computer, so I just want to have it because there were some great data points in there. And then just one question I have is, I so understand the challenges of wanting to maximize the spending of the dollars, leveraging every dollar, looking for every funding opportunity. Looking at the timeline, do we have to have some sort of plan by, is it 9/21? Or that's when the first interim report is? Would that report be something that included a plan, or that would be at the 10/21 point?
That's a great question. The 9/21 date will probably have many organizations reporting $0 spent, and because the guidelines are still coming out, and so timing wise, with many local governments, especially the ones in North Carolina, they are finalizing budgets, etc. And so what we've heard and have been encouraged to do is to make sure that we're thoughtful and try to work towards December, fallish, with some benchmarks that you're incrementally and deliberate getting across the finish line. It's good to have the only thing about timing is that, for instance, broadband, you can spend some big dollars quick. And then a prime example, Greg and I, when we started talking about this, but back in March or March, February, when we knew the dollars may come, the first thing we said, hey, look, we could do grants for families that don't have access. And we had said, well, maybe a certain amount of dollars. Had we pulled that trigger, and we would have spent $3 million or whatever that number would have been, and then the feds would have announced their program. And so that is from a timing perspective. These next few months are precious because you don't want to, we only have the 60 million to the extent we can understand what the state is doing and the feds, so we can optimize those resources. We're saying, hey, let's try to do it. But in the meantime, not just wait and do nothing, but plan and have many different options so that when you get to the fall, once all the levers are pulled, if the feds don't invest in certain areas, we say, well, based on the rubric, highest and best use, this is where we would recommend board to invest these particular dollars. And so I think that these will just be very fluid conversations, but that is a great point, because you don't want to just rest on your laurels while we're waiting and miss out time-wise on certain things.
Okay, I think I understand that better now. Also, those reports are more expenditure reports. I see. They're not like budgets for everything you're planning to do.
I think CARES had more stringent timelines because of the time frame we had to use the dollars. You know, they started out saying, well, you had this 12-month window. It was hard, fast December 2020. And then they changed the date. The great thing is that with us having, you know, till 2024 to encumber it, 2026 to spend it, jurisdictions can make more thoughtful decisions because it's not as hurried.
Great, great. Thank you. I understand better. Thank you.
And,
Yeah.
and Manager Hager, if I could just add to that, with the CARES money, part of that requirement was that the board and the community had a plan and it was adopted because of that short time frame. Because this funding is coming directly from US Treasury to us now, we have much more flexibility within their guidelines for our priorities and more time, quite honestly, to do the work that needs to be done to make sure that we are investing those dollars in areas of priority for the board and for the community.
Okay, great. Thank you all.
All right, great discussion. So thank you, Greg, again, and Claudia, Jody. We'll stay tuned for more. So we have next on the agenda is the board and commission appointments. And Attorney Darby will lead this conversation.
Good evening, commissioners. It's my pleasure to present and to announce to you the results of your selection to the boards and committees and commissions. And I'll start with first the Alliance Board. You have selected Samarudi Thacker to the Animal Welfare Advisory Commission or Board. You have selected Katrine Bremser to the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission. You have selected Suzanne Shama to the Citizens Advisory Committee. You can select two. You have selected Michelle Kitchum and Leah Selvey to the City County Appearance Board. You have selected Maceo Tanks to the Durham County Women's Commission, 5 different positions. Christine Allen, Ruby Holmes, Cheryl Johnson, Tamika McCrae. Those are the 5. And then down to the Durham Planning Commission. There are 3 at-large positions, and there's 1 township position, that being Oak Grove, Carr Township. The 3 at-large positions: Nathaniel Baker, Kathy Rose, Zori Williams, and then to the township position, you have selected David Morgan. To the Durham Sports Commission, Bill Kaloff. To the Durham Technical Community College Board of Trustees, 1 at-large position, you have selected Gina Bryant. To the Workforce Development Board, 1 position, That's the vocational rehab position. Ashley McKenna. Ashley McKenna. And then to the Environmental Affairs Board, there are 3 vacant positions, one being an air quality position and the other being a public health position. And then finally an education communication position. To the education communications position, you have selected William Brusa. To the public health position, you have selected Sherry Taylor. And then to the air quality, air resource position, you have selected Wilson Sowles. Forgive me for pronouncing these names of Wilson Sowles, I believe is the way you pronounce it. Then to the jury commission, you have selected Tonette Amos. Then to the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, 5 positions, 3 being citizens, 1 being a juvenile defense counsel or attorney, then 1 being a member of the United Way or some other nonprofit organization. Citizens, you have selected Pearson Coss, Kelvin McIver, and Leah Selvey. The United Way or nonprofit organization, you have selected DeWarn Langley. And then to the Juvenile Defense Council attorney, or being an attorney, you have selected Nisha Williams. And then finally, to the Library Board of Trustees, you have selected Hank Kinsley. Those are your selections for tonight. And there were 14 different boards and commissions that you assigned people to tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Darby. And what I'd like to say to the citizens of Durham is the Board of Commissioners recognize the need to have representatives from our community serve on these boards. We could not function without your participation, and we sincerely thank you for your service to serving on these boards and commissions. So that brings us to our end of our agenda, and we have a closed session, commissioners. The board is requested to adjourn to closed session for the following: to establish or to instruct the public body, staff, or negotiating agent concerning the position to be taken by or on behalf of the public body in negotiating the price and other material terms of a contract or proposed contract for the acquisition of real property by purchase, option, exchange, or lease, or the amount of compensation, other material terms of an employment contract or proposed employment contract pursuant to GS 143-318.11A5. Also, to allow the public body to prevent the disclosure of information that is privileged or confidential pursuant to the law of this state or of the United States, or not considered a public record within the meaning of Chapter 132 of the General Statute. Public records as defined in GS 132-1 do not include plans to prevent or respond to terrorist activities. To the extent such records set forth vulnerability and risk assessment, potential targets. Monica, is this? Is that pursuit to what we're doing tonight?
Yes, ma'am. That's what was provided to me by the attorney. I believe the discussion will take place surrounding things
Okay, it
that
just-
more so
okay.
prevent the disclosure of information.
Okay, it was just beginning to read a little weird. Okay. All right. I do not include plans to prevent or respond to terrorist activities to the extent such records set forth vulnerability and risk assessment, potential targets, specific tactics, or specific security or emergency procedures, the disclosure of which would jeopardize the safety of governmental personnel or the general public or the security of any governmental facility, building, structure, or information storage system pursuant to GS 143-318.11A and GS 132-1.7B. I will entertain a motion to go into closed session.
I'm sorry, Chair Howerton, there's one additional closed session. I'm sorry, did you read all three of them? There's one for personnel as well that was recently added to the agenda. I can read that one for you if you would like.
Yeah, I don't have that one, so you want to read that one?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. The board is requested to adjourn into closed session to consider the qualifications, competence, performance, character, fitness, conditions of appointment, or conditions of initial employment of an individual public officer or employee or prospective public officer or employee, or to hear or investigate a complaint, charge, or grievance by or against an individual public officer or employee pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A6.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So move, Madam Chair.
Second,
Seconded.
okay, second, moved by Commissioner Burns, second by Commissioner Alum. Clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Alum,
Aye.
Commissioner Burns,
Aye.
Commissioner Carter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Jacobs,
Aye.
Chair Howerton.
Aye. Passes 5-0. And I'd like to thank all of our citizens for attending our virtual meeting. And callers attending the closed session will are asked to join at the information that was sent out by the clerk. We are convening to closed session.
NC. So you got the thumbs up?
Kathy,
Got it.
you can
Thank
go
you
ahead
all
and
very
dial
much.
into the closed session.
All right.
Okay, Monica.
Chair Howerton, we do have a majority of the board on the line. We have Vice Chair Jacobs, Commissioner Alam, and Commissioner Carter. And I'm sorry, Commissioner Burns is now joining in, so.
Okay. So commissioners, we have met in closed session, given directions to staff. And I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Okay, it's
Second.
moved. Second by Commissioner Burns. And our clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Alam,
Aye.
Commissioner Burns,
Aye.
Commissioner Carter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Jacobs,
Aye.
Chair Howerton.
Aye. 5-0. We are